Recording. Okay. So guys, we're back to part 2 of working with self-directed IRAs, and our primary guest is Larissa Green. She is enlightening us on how to effectively use self-directed IRAs for real estate investment, tax lien investments, angel investments, and any type of other investments that the IRS allows through a self-directed IRA.
Great, thank you, Sonia. So we were just talking about the asset classes last time, and I think we really sort of covered it, but just keeping in mind, based on that discussion, that the IRS does allow a lot of asset classes, a lot of different strategies. The flip side of that is that they really have a very short list of things that you can't do, and some people that you can't transact with, and so I'll talk about that in just a moment. But the idea, again, is just, real estate in many forms can be invested in through an IRA account, long-term and short-term rentals. You can do rehab projects. You don't have to buy single-family homes. They can be condos, mobile homes, or even mobile home parks, for example. Tax liens and deeds we talked about, real estate investment trusts, and I know sometimes REITs, as they're termed, are considered publicly traded. So Advanta would hold the ones that are private. As well as syndications and private placements. And those could be real estate based, but they don't have to be. We have seen limited partnerships and syndications for a lot of different asset classes, including things like multifamily real estate or apartment complexes, but they can be in the medical field. They can be in commercial real estate. They can be for a whole myriad of investments. And so the idea, again, is just very simply that you can make the investments that you choose. So here are the rules, guys. And a lot of times when we talk about the rules for investing, it sort of feels like a no portion of the presentation. But the truth is that, these are the only things that you can't do in an IRA. And again, then the list for investments and strategies does go on and on. So prohibited investments are life insurance and collectibles. And that's it. Anything else is allowed. There are people that you can't transact with, and I'll talk about that in just a second. But just keep in mind that an IRA can't buy a life insurance policy, even if it's not your own. So a lot of times people want to invest in life insurance policies of other people, and that's prohibited in an IRA. And then collectibles, so antiques, alcohol, artwork, stamps, some coins, and just keeping in mind that the IRA can buy gold and silver bars and coins and other types of coins as well, but they can't be considered rare for the value. So if you're looking at the value, then the value would be based on what the metal is trading at and not based on the fact that the coin would be considered rare or antique. And there actually, the IRS does provide a list of different types of gold coins that are allowed on their website. So prohibited transactions, people you can't invest with. That's going to be anybody up and down your lineal tree. And they go further to say that those people can't have a current benefit. And so what is a transaction? It could be buying, selling, leasing, exchanging, lending money, having sweat equity provided for by a person that's considered a disqualified person. And I'll talk about that in further detail in just a second, because I have a slide that kind of shows that information. And then when does tax apply to an IRA? Remember, we said that the benefit, of course, is tax deferred or tax-free investing, with a few exceptions. And those exceptions are going to be based around a tax called unrelated business income tax. So when does it apply? It applies when the IRA is receiving business income back to the account. And I'm not a CPA, so I'm not really comfortable defining this other than to say most investments are considered passive, but when the IRA receives business income and it's categorized in that way, then this unrelated business income tax would apply, and it's something to talk to your CPA or tax professional about. And then the other time it would apply is when you're purchasing real estate in an IRA and using debt financing to do so. So you can use a mortgage to buy real estate in an IRA. It is allowed, but you have some moving parts there. One, it has to be a non-recourse loan. And two, the IRA is going to incur this tax based on the financing. Keeping in mind, sort of on a broader scale, if you invest in a limited partnership that's buying real estate and they're using financing, then this tax again is going to apply because financing is in place to purchase real estate. So just keeping, that sort of out in front of you if you're looking at different investments and using financing, or if you're investing into a group investment that's using financing to purchase real estate.
Okay.
So who is considered disqualified persons, people you can't transact with? So you can see on this slide, we have the IRA holder. You can't transact with yourself, meaning that if you personally own a property and you want to sell it to your IRA, that would be prohibited, and the reverse would be true as well. You can't provide any sweat equity for the property or any IRA investments, meaning that if you own real estate in your IRA and you want to go paint the front door red, that would be considered prohibited, even if you don't pay yourself, or the reverse, even if you wanted to pay yourself fair market value for that service, it would be considered prohibited. So you cannot provide sweat equity for an IRA owned asset. That's very important. And then who else?
Let me just make sure. I just want to use a simple example. Okay. So if I own a property in my self-directed IRA, and it needs some level of maintenance, I cannot go do the maintenance myself, but I can hire a qualified person to do that maintenance, correct?
That's correct. Now, keeping in mind, though, these individuals that are considered disqualified can't do the maintenance either. So, for example, Jonathan couldn't go and paint the door red in my example. He couldn't do that for you because he's considered a disqualified person. And then, further to that, it would be spouses and business entities of those. So if Jonathan owned a construction company, for example, and he said, hey, I'll send my crew out there to do that work, that would also be prohibited. And it's not based on whether or not you pay these individuals. It is just prohibited. There's kind of drawing a line in the sand.
Based on a relationship as defined by the IRS, correct?
Yes.
So
Now,
what is the purpose of that?
Commissions. I'm sorry, go ahead, Jonathan.
What is the purpose of that?
So I really don't know the exact reasons, but so this would be a guess on my part. But if you look at something, for example, like a private mortgage, if I lent money to my son to buy a property and I was in first position and I was getting, 6%, this is all fair market value, it should be fine. But then he defaults and doesn't pay me. Am I going to foreclose the property on my son? Probably not. Also, further to that sweat equity rule, the IRS defines a contribution as an amount they allow you to in cash. So contributions made in cash or money basically contributed to the IRA on an annual basis. And they have defined it. They have said a contribution is money being contributed to the account on an annual basis based on an amount we allow. So second to that is that they don't want any non-cash contributions to your IRA account, which is what they would consider that. So, going out and performing sweat equity is not allowed because non-cash contributions are not allowed in an IRA account. So they probably have a few different reasons they do that, but aside from, the non-cash contribution issue, I don't know why they go further into, up and down your lineal tree. But my guess is, of course, that the goal here is to make investments to save for retirement. And then when you're investing with family members, those are typically not investments. They're something that you do because that's your son or your daughter, or your parent. So that would be a guess.
Okay. So let me ask another example, because Jonathan is my son. And he has a sister. So based on these disqualified persons, I could not sell my daughter a house as her realtor, correct? But Jonathan, as her sibling, could sell her a house if it were in the IRA, correct?
So yes, that is correct. If you look at this chart, you're going to see that siblings, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, cousins are not considered expressly prohibited. However, remember on the last slide, I mentioned further to that, there can't be a current benefit to the IRA holder. So if there's some current benefit, now it becomes prohibited. So an easy example of that, and using your example, Sonia, would be if, Jonathan's sister were to sell him a property, and she had, gained that commission. And let's say, just trying to come up with a good example. Let's say that she's brand new to, being a real estate agent, and she has no other clients at this time, and going through the transaction, her earning a commission would be a big benefit to her. Then is that a benefit to Jonathan likewise? And therefore, does it become prohibited? We don't make that determination, but things that on the surface are not prohibited can become prohibited if there's, a sort of a feel good reason for making that investment. The example that I always use is, let's say that my IRA owns a property and it's 123 Main Street. It's where everybody wants to live. And my brother says to me, hey, I see 123 Main Street is vacant. I really want to live downtown. I'll pay you fair market value rent. We'll do a lease. And I say, okay, let's do it. And we do that transaction. That's probably okay. But let's say that my brother, he's been kicked out of properties. He's been foreclosed on, so it's either he lives with me or he lives in my IRA owned property. Now there's sort of an intrinsic value there, and that could be an issue. And again, we don't make that determination, but if you're looking at an investment that isn't for investment purposes, that's probably a time to bring in an attorney and say, hey, how will this be viewed by the IRS?
Right. So yeah, the whole purpose of this, when we follow these rules, is that we don't want 2 years, 3 years down the line, the IRS coming back and auditing our actions. So that's why if there's a question of benefit, we would want to ask an attorney or a CPA to make sure we don't get a knock on the door from the IRS, because
that's correct. Yes. Yeah. But you're correct. On the surface of it, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, cousins are not considered prohibited. And so those are
children would be considered because they're in the same line. They can't do these transactions together.
Yes. Yep. And, even further to that, something like a primary beneficiary on your account, even if they're unrelated to you, they do become a disqualified person. So if I made, my best friend, my primary beneficiary, she is prohibited from transacting with my IRA. And why is that? Well, when something happens to me, she's going to inherit the account and now it becomes hers. And so that automatically makes her a prohibited or disqualified person to deal with my IRA.
So typically siblings would not be disqualified, but if they become a beneficiary, then they become disqualified. That makes sense. Thank you for clarifying that, because I'm always thinking of ways on how to build a family and how to benefit together. But thank you for sharing that. Okay, let's let you go to the next piece, because I know, Jonathan, did you want
to that point? So I have a life insurance policy with Northwestern Mutual, and my sister is my beneficiary right now.
Not your mother?
Yeah, look, I apologize. This might be the first time I'm heard that. But so with that, with my sister, it's a lot of intricacies. So I guess my question is, if one, I was curious if this portfolio could be rolled into my portfolio with Northwestern. Because you act more as a broker, right? You're more of you said you're a consultant.
Not a consultant or a broker. We're our true title is TPA, or third party administrator. So we're not really, to answer your question, the portfolio with Northwestern Mutual and this are separate. They're all a part of your portfolio, but they are not together. This is an individual account and it is held by Advanta. And it only holds private investments. And so, if you had, some stock investments and life insurance investments with Northwestern Mutual, that's going to remain separate from this investment. So it's still a part of your estate, so to speak, but they are considered separate accounts.
And you did say earlier, but I'm sorry, Jonathan, to interrupt, but she said earlier that a life insurance cannot go into this IRA account. So that would exclude it anyway.
Yes.
Right?
Okay, so if I were to liquidate an asset based off a transaction between my sister and I were to take those funds and dump it into an IRA or a insurance policy, could that then be a conflict if the IRS were to trace?
No, if you guys, let's say you're invested in something together and as you said, you liquidate, your contribution to your IRA is just based on earned income. It doesn't necessarily matter where it comes from. What they're looking at is, did you have earned income this year to then put the money into an IRA? And your contributions are going to be limited based on the account that you open. So a Roth or a traditional IRA for 2022, it's just $6,000. So if you have a traditional IRA and you make a contribution, all the IRS is going to look at is whether or not you had the earned income to justify that contribution, essentially. So it doesn't necessarily matter that, that income came from an investment that you and your sister had or whatever. What matters is once the money is in the account, what you do with it from there. So you just have to qualify to make a contribution once the money's in there. Now you're looking at disqualified persons rules, and it's IRC or IRS section code 4975 is where they talk about what's prohibited, what's, who's considered disqualified. And that applies once money is in the IRA and you're making investments to that.
Okay.
So what I think my son might be alluding to, and if I'm wrong, Jonathan, correct me. I think he wants to know, how do we fund a self-directed IRA account?
Mm-hmm.
And I think he wants to know, if he liquidates an asset, can he then put it into a self-directed IRA? Is that what you're asking, Jonathan?
No, what I was asking is what I asked pretty much. It was more so, I don't know, because I mean this policy just doesn't make sense to me. So I'm just trying
to policy, it's an IRA.
No, I'm not talking about the entire thing. I'm talking about this page that we're on right now in terms of this.
The rules. Okay.
This rule, it just doesn't really make sense to me. So I'm just trying to think through.
Yeah, Jonathan, basically what the IRS wants you to do is make an investment for investment purposes. And so you can partner with anybody that you want. So you can partner with your sister's IRA, you can partner with your mom's IRA, you can partner with your grandmother's IRA, because partnering is different than transacting. So your IRA and your mom's IRA, for example, they can go in together on a deal. And the way I normally think of it is a closing table. So very simply, who's sitting where at the closing table? If you're sitting together at the closing table, you're partnering. If you're sitting across from each other, then you're doing a transaction, which would be prohibited. So if you're going to buy a property, let's say, and you want to partner with your sister or with your sister's IRA, that is allowed, especially IRAs partnering together, because that benefit is still for the IRAs. It's not for you personally. And those IRAs can buy 123 Main Street. They can lend money. They can go into an angel and investment together. So you have a lot of options on partnering. What the IRS is talking about more specifically is, for example, lending your mom money. That would be prohibited. Lending your sister money. On the surface of it, you may be able to do it, but you have to look at the investment and the purpose behind that investment more specifically. So does that kind of help you?
Yeah, I understand. And we don't have to spend more time on this. In my mind, I'm just processing, like, why is that prohibited? We don't necessarily have to spend more time on it. To me, it just, like, we're talking about generational wealth, right? Like, and that kind of goes with money circulating through the family. So
Sure.
we don't need to spend more time on it. It's fine.
Okay. Well, just a little bit more to that. The partnering may be a way to look at it for generational wealth as well, because one IRA might not have enough money to do the investment that you want to do, but by pooling those funds together, by partnering those IRAs, now you may have enough money to make that investment. And those IRA accounts can make their own investment. They just can't buy an investment that already exists within the family. Does that make more sense? So, if Sonia owned 123 Main Street and you said, well, that's a great investment, I want to own it in my IRA, that would be prohibited. But if some other unrelated person listed 123 Main Street for sale and you guys all wanted to put money in through IRA accounts to buy 123 Main Street, it's an investment of the account, yes, but it's still an investment of your portfolio through your IRA account. So, we say your IRA can make its own investments, not yours. But the truth of the matter, of course, is that the IRA is owned by you. It is your investment, but it's done through the IRA account.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
So what you're saying about generational wealth, my sister and I can buy a property through each of our IRAs, and that means her IRA will be 50% owner and my IRA will be 50% owner, correct? And so
Correct.
as money is generated and goes back into the IRA from what we own together, she'll get 50% of the proceeds into her IRA. I'll get 50% of the proceeds into my IRA, correct?
That's correct. And the percentage of ownership is just based on the amount of funds each IRA brings to the table. And so, Sonia, if you had, 80% of the funds and she had 20%, that's how it's broken up. And it's an undivided interest in the property. So they are tenants in common in the deed. It's not joint tenancy. So I just want to make that clear.
Gotcha. And we can talk about that later. That's a technicality, but we can talk about that later. Tenants in common versus joint tenancy.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Let me let you go further. There are other things that we need to talk about. This is so exciting. I could sit here and talk to you about this all day long. That's how exciting it is for me. So I'm going to stop asking questions and let you get through your slide, because everybody needs to know about self-directed IRAs. Everybody needs to set up a self-directed IRA so that they can invest in real estate and other things, because you tell us why. I'm gonna be quiet.
And one question, I don't know, you might have already touched on this, but have you already spoke on compound interest?
I didn't, and I'm not really going to talk about that, because the investment strategy is up to the IRA holder and the investment they're making. But of course, the idea being that the investment is tax deferred or tax free, and so however you're investing your money, that's how your account is going to grow. And so that is a huge benefit of it. But I really don't focus on the strategy itself. So compound interest isn't something I'll talk about.
But is it possible through a self-directed IRA?
Yeah, absolutely. When you're looking at your investments, a lot of times people will talk about, I think it's called the rule of 72, things of that nature. I mean, but those are all going to be based on your investment strategy. So what is the percentage or rate of return that you're making? How often are you putting your money to work? So, when you have a self-directed IRA and you move cash over to Advana, it's just going to sit in cash until you put it to work. So that's where your entrepreneurial spirit comes in, and you have to put that money to work. And so, whenever you're making an investment, you want to look at your rate of return. And when that money comes back because your investment is complete, when are you going to put it to work again? Things of that nature. So if you have an account, you're just starting, and you open an account with Advanta, just keeping in mind that when it sits in cash, it is literally just going to sit in cash. It's not going to earn anything.
Okay. So the main advantage, would it be fair to say that the main advantage is a tax shelter?
Well, tax shelter, but also, the self-directed portion is investing in what I have people that come to me that want to make investments that are maybe less common at Advana, but that's what they know best. So racehorses, alpaca, cattle, airplanes, 18-wheelers, and all kinds of interesting investments. And they are less common, than real estate, but the huge advantage is taking that retirement account that you're already saving for retirement anyway, and then putting it to work in where your knowledge base is, really having the ability to do that. If you don't know anything about the stock market and your IRA is invested in the stock market, you may want to diversify your portfolio, and that's a huge advantage to a self-directed IRA. And then it's not all or nothing. So you can be invested in the market. You can leave your IRA with your brokerage firm and then just move over the amount that you want to self-direct. So if you have a property show up and, you find that that's an investment you want to make in your IRA account, you can move over just what you want to invest in that property and leave the rest with your brokerage account. And so that now you've diversified your retirement.
Okay. And so for further clarity, there's no penalty for withdrawing. There's no penalty on withdrawing from the IRA. Is there a certain amount of time? And once again, you might have touched on this as well, but is there a minimum, maximum in terms of funds?
No, so I'm glad you asked that, because you're not taking money out of the account. This is an investment of the account. A lot of times people will ask me that same question, like, well, how quickly do I have to pay it back? This isn't a loan to you. It's an investment of the account. So when you look at your brokerage firm statement, and they give you a statement and it says you're invested in this stock, that stock, this stock, and it shows you percentages. And that statement is for your retirement account. That's exactly what this is. This is just a different asset class. So you're not taking the money out. There's no distribution here. It is literally the account making that investment. And so earlier when we talked specifically about that titling, how is it held? That's why it has to be titled in the name of the IRA. I did include the slide that shows the titling, but basically, when you make an investment, it's going to be Advanta IRA Services. So if it was your account, Jonathan, it would be Advanta IRA Services LLC for benefit of Jonathan Sanders, IRA number 1234. Or we talked about leaving your name off, so Advanta IRA Services LLC, IRA number 1234. And that shows that this investment is an investment of the IRA. So you don't have to make an investment that is 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. You can make 6-month investments. You can make 30-year investments. It's completely up to you. The IRS, as a matter of fact, doesn't even say that you have to have income on the investment, meaning that if you I have clients that do land speculating, they purchase land and they never have the rent coming in on that vacant land. They're just waiting for the opportunity where somebody wants to develop it so that they can in turn sell that land to somebody who wants it. For a higher or increased value. And so, they're not receiving rental income on that property, and the IRS doesn't say that you have to. What's going to be important there is when you have an asset that doesn't have income, how are you going to pay the expenses on that asset? You are required to have the IRA pay all expenses related to an asset. So if you buy vacant land, how will the IRA pay the property taxes, any insurance that you want to hold on that property? So making sure your annual contributions cover it, making sure you have maybe investments that have earnings to cover those expenses. But the idea is very simply that the IRA is making an investment. You're not taking a loan from the IRA to do so.
Okay.
If I can put something in layman's terms, yes, I'm getting excited about everything you're teaching. But let's just say in pure layman's terms, when we think about a 401k or 403b account, those accounts are strictly stock market based. Am I correct?
Typically, you will see on occasion those accounts having the ability to self-direct, for lack of a better term, but typically they are going to be market-based investments, and the administrator or trustee is going to direct the investments that are allowed within the plan.
So yeah, so when you're talking to someone about your 401k, they'll probably say, how aggressive do you want to be? We'll do more stocks in the tech market or more stocks in large caps, small caps, things of that nature. But when we're talking about a self-directed IRA, we're saying that I have some tax sheltered money. For example, you might have 100K sitting in your 401k, okay? And you say, oh my goodness, I can buy a house in Oklahoma, okay? So you can move that money to a self-directed IRA, purchase that house, and it's not considered a distribution from your account. You've just rolled that over into a self-directed IRA, and you're not technically borrowing money from yourself. You're just investing that money you have already earned and placed into that account in the first place. Am I correct?
That's correct. And when you're moving money from account to account, we have specific processes in place so that it's not considered taxable. So it's not, oh, let me take a distribution. And you can see that on this slide, actually. Don't take funds out of the 401k, move it to an IRA, and that's not a taxable event. So moving from an old 401k or an old 403b can move, the money moves seamlessly to a traditional IRA, and now you can self-direct it. Or if you have a traditional IRA with a brokerage firm, you can move it to a traditional IRA with Advanta, and that's seamless. You're not going to pay taxes for doing so. If you take a distribution, literally ask them to send you money, that's where there's a taxable event, and that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about moving from retirement account to retirement account. So that's a very important distinction.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because you can't buy a house with your regular 401k. But
Right.
you can buy a house in your self-directed account.
That makes a lot of sense.
If no one else is happy, I'm ready to do the happy dance. Okay, let's talk some more.
All right. Another question. So let's say we just go ahead and sign up for a self-directed IRA right now with Advanta, however the process goes. Can that, is there, I think I asked this already, is there like a minimum amount that we have to be contributing to it? What if it just stayed at zero for like a year or however long? Is that okay?
You're going to pay fees for that, so I don't recommend it. You can contribute. There is no maximum or minimum as far as what to start the account with, except for the contribution limits based on the type of account. So if you set up a Roth IRA with us, let's say, well, the contribution limit is $6,000 for this year, so you can contribute up to $6,000 as long as you had it in earned income. And there's a couple other stipulations there. But if you wanted to start with 1,000, we don't say, oh no, you can't start with 1,000. But what we do say is we are a fee-based company. You're going to pay a $50 application fee and $100 a year to keep an account in cash only. So it has to be worth it to you to do that, and we don't make that determination. But I do have clients that make smaller investments. They buy, gold and silver bars and coins. So they just start with, say, $5,000, and they want to hold gold and silver bars and coins in the amount of a value of 5,000. And so they're okay with that. So just keeping in mind that we're fee based. And so we don't have any requirements as far as the minimum you start with, but just, considering the fees that are going to be in place in order to do that.
Okay. All right. So we're going to wrap up. We have 5 minutes. We're going to wrap up now. And what's really important is, what's important is, how do we get in touch with you to get more information? Jonathan, what else is important? The thing about this is, you've given us so much meat, and it may take a while to digest it all. We need to be able to get in touch with you again. We need to know, how do we set up these accounts, because you started explaining to us how to set them up. And we need to know, what do you suggest the next step is? Okay.
So Sonia, I'm going to go through my example really quickly, because I always feel like that answers a lot of questions. So when you find the investment and you're ready to make it, and this isn't for all cases, but a lot of times people come to us with the investment already in mind. You set up your account, you reach out to us. It's an online application packet. There's only one form that needs a signature, and that's a transfer form. And that's because we send it to your other administrator to help you move the money. So in this example, John opens an account. He's going to fund it with an old 401k. He's going to let us know that he already found the property. And then we're going to work with his real estate agent. We're going to work with his closing attorney or title agent, and anybody else involved in this transaction, to make sure everything is properly titled. So Jonathan is going to set up his account. He's going to roll money over from a 401k. He is going to provide us with everything from contract to close. The IRA we are the legal signer for the IRA, so that's important. So even from offers to contract, he's going to send it into us. We're going to sign them for him, and then we're going to submit them on his behalf. Once the property goes under contract, we're going to work with the title agents, make sure everything shows the IRA as the buyer. The IRA is going to pay all expenses for the investment, including the closing costs. Earnest money deposit comes from the IRA. Once we go to close, and the property gets rented, the terms of the lease are determined by John, but we are going to sign the lease and work with him to make sure that the tenant is paying making the checks payable to the IRA. Just keep in mind, we're not a property management company. So if the tenant doesn't pay, John will be following along basically and making sure that we're receiving the checks through his online portal. And then it's going to be up to him to take action. Any action that needs to be taken would be paid for by the IRA. So if at some point he does need to get an attorney involved, again, expense of the IRA account. But essentially the property would be rented for, in this example, $1,200. The tenant makes the check payable to Advanta. The check can come directly to Advanta, or it can go to John, but it has to be made payable to the IRA account. So Advanta IRA, for benefit of John's IRA number 1234. And then it's forwarded to Advanta. We deposit it to the account. Any expenses are paid by the IRA. So let's say that the tenant alerts John that he needs to have the sink faucet replaced. John is going to reach out to one of his vendors, let them know. The vendor will bill John's IRA. He can forward us the bill, or he can go online onto his portal and just request we pay the plumber, for example. and we submit the check directly to the vendor. And then when John is ready to sell, he lets us know. He gets his real estate agent involved again, and we work with the agent, the title or closing attorney, and John to make sure that everything is done correctly. Money comes directly back to the IRA upon close. And that's really how the transaction works. And again, we're your IRA assistant, so we're there to work with you through this and kind of explain it to you as we go. And as I mentioned, we have stuff going on all the time, webinars, and we have a blog, a video library for anybody that wants to learn more. And Sonia, I know you asked, how can people reach me? My direct line is 727-754-9963. Again, 727-754-9963. And I'm happy to answer any questions. So if you guys still have questions, let me know.
Yeah, a couple of things. Can we figure out, is Advanta itself established in Oklahoma? And if not, can you help me figure that piece out so that we know the legality of Oklahoma?
So we're not established in Oklahoma, but we can help anyone anywhere, meaning that we are a nationwide company. Actually, we can work with anybody worldwide that has a US-based retirement account. We do have clients worldwide. You can also invest worldwide. You don't have to be invested in the US, but what we don't do is we don't do the legal side of it. So Jonathan, if you said, hey, I want to invest in Costa Rica, I want to buy a property there, then I wouldn't say, oh, okay, well, this is legally what you need to do. We would leave that up to you and your attorney to figure out, and then just providing us the paperwork that's appropriate to that investment. So we can work with anyone anywhere. And we do. We have 2 offices. We're in Largo, Florida, and we're in the Atlanta area of Georgia. But you know, everything is really done over fax and email these days anyway, so we can work with anyone.
Great. And then, okay, so, and I'm looking at this time, we're pretty much down to a minute left on this meeting. So what I'm thinking is do you have literature that you could send, maybe like a 1 page or something very high level, that you could send? And then what I'm thinking of is some type of marketing campaign that I could push out to my client that could help with referrals in regard to how we can leverage a self-directed IRA to purchase houses.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. If you you should have my the email that you have right now. We're about to be cut off, but the email you have right now is not my preferred email, Mom. If you could send her my preferred email, jonathansandersrealty@gmail.com. I think it'd probably worth for us to have a follow-up.
Okay, what I'm going to do is put in your correct contact information as well as Larissa's correct contact information when I post this to the blog so that we can keep in contact. The most important thing is when we get information like this is to act on it. So I'm going to make sure we have the information so we can all follow up, okay?
Great.